Welcome to the Black Anarchist Podcast, a channel where critical thinkers come to learn and grow. Through pedagogical discussions, we challenge the status quo, conventional narratives, and present raw truth. I'm JC, author of Blame It On Address, The Manufacturing of Black Homophobia and Performative Masculinity. Happy Pride Month, or as Buzz the Guy calls it, Happy Rainbow Smoke Month. Today we're going to address Umar Johnson's claim that homosexuality is un-African. And plenty of people have called him out on it, but he still sticks to this talking point. And I'm not sure why. There must be some kind of an agenda behind it. I apologize for getting here late, but I was trying to use OBS Studio, which I've never used before, and I had some issues. So I'm going to eventually go back to using OBS Studio, but I need to learn how to use it first. But for now, we're going to use StreamYards. Yeah, thanks for being here. I don't think this is going to be too long, but this is Pride Month, or again, as Buzz the Guy calls it, Rainbow Smoke Month. So we got smoke this month, and we're already midway through June. So I gotta catch up and try to use the rest of this month to promote Pride as much as I can. I actually would like to debate Umar Johnson because I'm not sure why he keeps sticking to this talking point. I've already addressed this issue before, but I'm going to do this now and tie my book into it because homosexuality is completely natural. Not only did it exist in Africa prior to colonialization, it also exists among the animal kingdom, which I've also addressed. There are gay, it's not that they're necessarily gay, but they engage in homosexual behavior, meaning there's male on male sex. There's male on male sex between lions, rhinos, elephants, giraffes, dogs, cats. I guess people are just ignorant. It's almost like they're willfully ignorant because even when I've done the content, the people who I directed those videos towards still were sticking to the same talking points. So really nothing you can do is going to deter these people. They want to maintain this false notion that it's unnatural, it's un-African. And no matter what data, no matter what empirical information you present to them, they're still going to cling to this because there's an agenda behind it. And I don't know what the agenda is. Well, okay. As much as these people claim to be pro-Black, I would have to assume that they're agents of white supremacy. And Umar Johnson included. If you're homophobic, you're white supremacist, because that's where it came from. What other agenda is there? Other than the fact that you want Black people to continue procreating, which I'm going to address in a minute. You want Black people to procreate, and I understand that two men or two women can't procreate, which I consider to be a good thing. But no, I'm going to address Umar Johnson in a second and his stance on procreation because he did this. Let me read these comments. Bottlenose dolphins are another example, and animals like Komodo dragons engage in, I'm not even going to, parenthogenesis. I know I've heard that before, but for whatever reason, I'm not pronouncing it right. I'm not going to butcher that word to sound illiterate. Okay. Yeah, I don't plan on being here too long. I just really want to debunk Umar Johnson. And like I said, if Umar Johnson wants to debate me, I don't think he will debate me because he doesn't like to debate educated people. And when he has addressed or when he has broached this topic, it's always been by someone who's not able to match him intellectually. So what he does is he dominates them, he overtalks them. Provided that I'm not on his platform, right? Provided that we are on neutral territory like Fox Soul or somebody else's channel who doesn't have an agenda, and we're given equal time, Umar Johnson would not be able to dominate me the way he dominates other people. I mean, especially when it comes to this. I mean, I may not be knowledgeable about everything, but I'm knowledgeable about this, and he's completely wrong. So let's get into this clip. This is from DJ Vlad. He's done other videos. I'm not even going to try to address all of them because it's so ignorant and it's so wrong. And he says it with such authority that I guess his confidence makes him seem like he knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't. All right, so let's get into Umar Johnson. I'm trying to show this. Why is it not coming up? Before, okay. Okay, there we go. I don't know why it wasn't coming up. There we are. Let's get started.
Well, you made some comments about the type of school that you want started. You know, number one, you know, since we're talking about the whole LGBT thing, you said that nobody that's, I guess, sexually confused is going to be allowed as a teacher in your school.
Yes.
Let's start out with this whole, I don't know, phantom school. That's what I'll call a phantom school, a school that doesn't exist. Because y'all know on Martin, they always say to Tommy, you ain't got no job. Well, to Umar Johnson, what I'm going to say is you ain't got no school. So how are you talking about discriminating against members of the LGBT community when you don't even have any capital? That's what we're talking about, capitalism. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Because this is supposed to be somebody who's pro-Black. So he's going to use capitalism, which is a tool of white supremacy, and then he's going to weaponize his capital to discriminate against his own people. Because they always try to make this demarcation between Black and LGBT, not this woefully dismissive of the fact that many of us are both. Many of us are both Black and LGBT. So I don't know how you separate the two. This is so ignorant. And I told y'all that they always came about discrimination, about how the white man discriminated against them. The white man has his foot on their necks. But when they are put in power, they use their power to oppress their own people. So what he's saying is this phantom school, which has never come to fruition, once he actually gets it off the ground and launches it, he's going to use his power as a capitalist to disenfranchise his own people. By the way, he's not the only one because, oh guys, I know some of y'all are fans of Q Butter, but Q Butter did the same shit to me, right? And I know this is some old shit, but when I was on his panel, people were saying that maybe I should teach at his school, right? And then Q Butter was so dismissive to say, oh no, I don't want any LGBT people in my school. First of all, Q Butter's teachers are volunteers. They're not even getting paid. So not only are you not going to pay me, you're going to discriminate against me for an unpaid position. You should be lucky to have somebody like me. And they always assume that just because you're gay, that you're going to push your sexuality onto children. No, absolutely not. Y'all don't understand. And I don't. In addition to being gay, I'm also an anti-natalist. So my compassion is for children. I don't think children should be brought into existence, but if they are brought into studies show that a two-parent household is ideal. So I'm also a proponent of the traditional family. Not to say that I'm necessarily against. No, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it real because this is what I really think. I don't think gay people should be having children. That's just my opinion. Not to be discriminatory, but I think that is the moral high ground that we have above heterosexuals, is the fact that we can't procreate. I know people are going to say we can procreate through surrogates. No, 2 men can't procreate, 2 women can't procreate. I don't think gay people should be having children because then basically you fall into the same trap as heterosexuals. and you give up your moral superiority. Once you start having children, breeding them into the dysfunctional households, imposing life on them, putting them into this oppressive system, then basically you're no better than the straights. This heteronormative bullshit needs to be dismantled. This radical straight agenda, I'm staunchly against it. I'm for a radical LGBT agenda. The same way they can unapologetically push their heteronormative bullshit on us and shame us for being gay. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the same thing to them because they're the ones who are breeding children into hell, abusing them, neglecting them. So on this is the only issue that gives us the moral high ground. The fact that we don't procreate or we can't procreate with each other. So don't give that up because that is your power. That is your leverage. They try to weaponize that against us, but no, they can't weaponize. Not with me, they can't, because the only argument they can say is that we don't procreate. So therefore, if everybody goes gay, then we don't exist. I've addressed that in my book too. We don't need to exist, especially not under this oppressive ass system. Let me see if I have any comments. I'm not gonna try to go through. I don't want to get too long-winded with this. Definitely agents of white supremacy. They want to uphold patriarchy so bad. Right, patriarchy is white supremacy. That's the thing that they don't understand. And I got so much to say about Umar Johnson, and then I'm going to get into my book. Jermaine Shoemaker, aka Umar Johnson, will never open that school. Leon Honor has already debunked. Yeah, he has so much smoke. I actually find his channel to be very entertaining because he's exposed every grift, every sham that Umar Johnson has inflicted upon the Black community, right? And these are supposed to be the leaders. This is the masculine energy that we're supposed to be aspiring to. This is aspirational. We're supposed to be like Umar Johnson. We're supposed to be parasites on the community and go around grifting and taking people's money. Gosh, and I have content about that too. I have content about the grifters and the parasites of the Black community. And he's one of them, but he's definitely not the only one. There's a lot. The community is rife with financial parasites. People who don't want to work, they just go around. Let me read this. I hate when they lump us all in together. I'm not a lesbian or bi. I'm just gay, some same sex loving. Right. Yeah, the rainbow, LGBT, alphabet, all that shit. I guess what it is that we're a minority, whatever. We're actually not as small of a minority as people, especially when you include bisexual, because bisexuals are at least 20%. That's a study that is undercounted. But I guess there's strength in numbers. So if they lump us all together, then we have more power. I don't know. I think we do have separate issues. And a lot of the smoke has really gone towards the transgender. And then it sort of overshadows everything else. So because they keep, I don't want to talk about this too long, but when they keep talking about the bathroom issue and women's sports, then that becomes a dispersion for the entire LGBT community. So, I mean, it's like, what is that? I mean, I guess I am sympathetic to the plight of transgenders, but what does that have to do with gay men? Because then they're going to try to say that we're trying to force this on their children, right? So they take that one little example of transgenders trying to compete in women's sports, and now all of a sudden the whole LGBT community is coming for their children, and they're trying to invade their schools and impose their degeneracy on society. This is so. I'm sorry, y'all. We're going to have to flip their arguments against them because they're the ones who are pushing degeneracy on the community, not us. Not us. They're the ones. Umar Johnson is one of them. I'm a gay man who had a child and is paying child support. I I mean, if you already have a child, there's really nothing you can do about that. I guess the fact that you are stepping up and taking responsibility is one, but that's what they want, by the way. This is the critique that a lot of Black women have against us when they. I don't understand why you be male identified, because that the patriarchy is oppressive for Black women. But when they want to align with Black men or heterosexual Black men, and then they have all the smoke for the gays, this is what they want. This is what they would be getting out of it. They're going to be oppressed under patriarchy. They're going to have to engage in child rearing and sacrifice their dreams and their ambitions to raise some children, which they're not capable of doing. They're not going to get support from these men anyway. But they want to have smoke. Instead of having smoke for the men who are trapping them with children, they want to have smoke for us. It makes absolutely no sense. So the only thing they would be getting out of it is child support. And they already know that gays have disposable income, at least not all of us, but I'm talking about actual gays. I'm not talking about the bisexuals, the actual, because Umar says that we're all confused. I'm talking about the actual confused, the actual men who leech off the gay community, come in asking us, are we generous, right? Because they can't survive without us. They got to come to the gay community, pretend they're gay, so they can mooch off of our resources. What they want is for us to give these resources to them so they can be impregnated and then they can get child support, because they already know that the gay, I don't want to make a broad generalization, but they already know that gay men have more disposable income than straight men overall. Everybody knows this is true. This is not hyperbole. And so I guess a lot of Black women think that they would be better off if we weren't gay and we were giving those resources to them. No, the reason that we have disposable income is because we don't have children. Once you bring children into the equation, then we're just as financially strapped as everybody else. So again, the one advantage that we have is the fact that we don't have children. And by not having children, we are able to contribute to society, right? Because once you have children, you're not contributing to society or the community. You're taking. Now everybody has to contribute to you. Now their tax dollars are going towards you and your children. No, we don't have children, so our disposable income is going into the community, whereas theirs is only being taken out of the community to go towards their family and their children. To the extent that they're able to provide for themselves, that's fine. But a lot of them aren't, and they're relying on public school, public resources, and we're paying for all that shit. So we never get any thanks for our contributions to anything. The fact that we sacrificed, we didn't have children, but we're still paying to subsidize your your straight radical heterosexual agenda to breed children into hell. All right, y'all. I know that's a little bit much. I'm going to eventually get back. I don't know if I think we have 2 more comments or a few more. I don't think I'm going to go through all of them because I do want to get through this video and I don't want to start losing people. Right, because there was a white guy I saw in Bubs, and this white guy used to be gay. He has a son that act like he didn't know about the female characters. He saw his son wearing a dress. Oh yeah, I caught parts of that, but I was shopping and doing other things, so I need to go back and watch that in its entirety because I know that was very impactful. I caught probably 2/3 of it, but I didn't catch the part that you're referencing right now. Let me get into this video before I start losing people, and I'll come back to these comments in a little bit. Okay.
That is correct. Now, that's going to be tricky as well. Why? Because you cannot discriminate in hiring on the basis of sexuality either. So is it possible?
Right. And that is something that I was arguing back when I was in law school, that gender discriminate or sexuality, discrimination against people based on sexual orientation is gender discrimination. And one of my law professors was telling me that I was wrong. Well, the courts have actually turned around and now they agree with me. And I recognized this early on. When you discriminate against someone because of their sexual orientation, you're discriminating against them against their gender, based on their gender. Because you're saying that because I'm a man, I can only have sex with someone who's a woman, or vice versa. A woman can only have sex with a man. That is gender discrimination. And because I'm not the right gender for what you think is the ideal family, you're going to discriminate against me when it comes to employment. I want y'all to understand how insidious this is. This is not a laughing matter. They always say that if you don't work, you don't eat. Well, if you can't work, then you don't eat. So essentially what Umar Johnson is espousing is he thinks that gays should starve, right? He doesn't think that we should have the right to work. We don't have the right to earn a livelihood. This is the reason why, as an anarchist, I'm against not just capitalism, also against statism. I don't think the government should be interfering with the free market. I don't think that those who own capital, I believe that capital belongs to the workers, not to those who own capital, because the capital would have no value without those who produce labor. So, and what makes Umar Johnson's situation is so precarious is the fact he's not even self-funded, right? His money is coming from the community, which he is siphoning off for his own, his own sustainability. But he's going to take the community's money, not even his own money. It's not like he's self-funded. He's going to take the community's resources and use their resources to oppress their own people. He's going to say who can work, who can't work. So essentially, when you get down to what this boils down to, this is tantamount to death, right? Because if you can't work, then you starve. And he doesn't have enough systemic power to actually starve us. But if he had the power, if you put Umar Johnson as the president, as the dictator of America, he would want the gays to starve. We would not have the right to earn a livelihood. I want y'all to understand how insidious, how invidious this is. This is evil. This is statism run amok. And these pro-blacks are hardcore statists, all of them. And I'm eventually going to get back to him, his rejection of anarchy. This guy is so full of shit. And I didn't plan on beating up on Umar Johnson today. I really wanted to really address the substance of his arguments. But as I sit here speaking right now, this guy is so full of shit. So paradoxical, nonsensical. I would love to debate him. I would love to debate him on neutral territory where we get equal time to speak. Unless he goes back and does some new research, if he's using the talking points that he's used in the past, I would destroy him. He would really need to brush up and do his homework in order for him to go toe-to-toe with me. But this bullshit, I'm not going to say I would destroy him when it comes to everything, because he is knowledgeable when it comes to psychology. But even that gets murky because he starts twisting psychology to conform to his agenda. So I'm not an expert on psychology. I do know a little bit, but even he's going to talk about psychology in this video. And when he does that, it's so derailed. But let me keep going.
That someone who is sexually confused ends up getting hired at my school. I should hope I do all in my power to prevent such a thing from happening. Okay, but it is possible. But if that be the case, then I'm going to have to do something to reverse that, because although I do not hate, okay, or advocate harm against members of the LGBT community.
He's not advocating harm against the LGBT community, but he wants us to starve. He doesn't think that we should have the right to earn a livelihood. So this is what I'm talking about this unilateral contract with the Black community. They want us to support them, right? Because he would have no problem accepting donations from the LGBT community, right? This is what they always do. They want our disposable income. They want us to support them. They want to exploit us, right? But they're not going to pour back into us. This is what they always do. It's the same shit ad nauseum. They're going to take our money, but we don't get the benefit from them. So we're supposed to be workhorses for the Black community, but we don't get anything out of it. This is a one-sided unilateral contract.
I do not see that lifestyle in any way, shape, or form being in the best interest of African people.
Right. So your lifestyle is in the best interest of African people, right? You have created dysfunctional households. You have abandoned your children. You are an absentee father. Moreover, the LGBT community are products of straight people's dysfunction. So this is a projection. They're the ones who are dysfunctional, not us. We were born out of their dysfunction. We are the way. I'm not going to say we are the way we are because of them, but the dynamics of our relationships and our ability to commit and all that shit that we this is the shit that we saw growing up. We saw dysfunctional households. We were raised in dysfunctional households. We were raised by single mothers. We were abandoned by people like Umar Johnson. By the way, this guy has no authority to be speaking on anything about what a traditional family should look like because he's not even taking care of his own children. His own daughter is sitting on YouTube talking shit about how she had no relationship with him growing up. So this is what we should aspire to. We should all be like Umar Johnson and create broken homes, right? I told y'all, this is the one issue where we have moral superiority. Don't give it up. They want us to become like them so that we create dysfunctional households. And then we give up our moral superiority. So don't give it up. That is your power. That is your leverage. Why would you want to have children? I mean, I get it. There are some who want to have children, but I don't think that you should. And I'm glad that Buzz the God just came to the realization that by procreating, you are putting your children into the suppressive system. So you're contributing to your children's own oppression. You should not be doing that. Don't be mimicking straight people. That's what they want to do. Let them do it, but you don't need to do that. And if you are intent on becoming a parent, you can always adopt. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think that children deserve two parents. So I don't think, if you have the financial resources, you want to do it, fine. I'm not going to try to judge on what other people should do. Make sure you're able to provide a stable household for these children. Don't have this. Okay, I don't want to belabor that point. There's things I could say about that, about gays adopting and gays having family. I don't want to address that because this is Rainbow Smoke Month. So I'm in solidarity with the gay community, even though I'm not on board with everything. I'm not on board with the procreation and all that shit. But that's not what this live stream is about. This is about Umar Johnson and claiming that homosexuality is un-African.
One of the misconceptions of my work is that I hate gays or I want to harm gays. But as
who gives a shit about what you personally believe? We don't care about whether you hate us. Who gives a shit about that? What we care are about the policies. When you are put in power, when you have capital, you are going to use that systemic power to oppress your own damn people. Whether you hate us, whether you have some affection for the gay community is completely irrelevant. What matters is what you're going to do with your power. And you have already demonstrated that you are going to use that to disenfranchise us. So ipso facto, we should not be supporting you. We should not be supporting anybody who does not support us. Don't pour into these people unless there's some kind of reciprocity.
As a scholar who has more videos on YouTube than any other Black scholar alive, I get invited to speak across the world more than any Black scholar on the planet. You can't find anything.
Really? This is so self-indulgent. He's invited more than any scholar. First of all, to call himself a scholar is a stretch. It's a huge stretch. I understand he has a PhD. And I'm not even going to call him a doctor because unless you're a medical doctor, you can be called a doctor in an academic setting. If you are a professor, yes, you can refer to somebody as a doctor. I have a doctorate, by the way. I have a JD. You don't hear me going around calling myself a doctor. This is very pretentious, and y'all need to stop calling him Dr. Umar Johnson because it's not. I understand if you're not in the world of academia, you don't understand that. But in the world of academia, nobody would refer to Umar Johnson as a doctor, even though he has a PhD. He's not a medical doctor and he's not a professor. So it's improper. You don't call him a damn doctor. He's not the only one who has a damn doctorate degree.
Thing in any message of mine where I've ever advocated harm or hurt against homosexuals. In fact, as a psychotherapist, I do therapy and have done therapy with.
He's not a psychotherapist. Absolutely not. I wish he would stop wanting shit because he's not licensed. And y'all know I'm not a proponent of occupational licenses, but he's not licensed. Therefore, he's not a psychotherapist. He's a counselor or whatever the hell he is. He's not a psychotherapist. Stop the cat.
With homosexuals, and I can tell you that when it comes to suicide and low self-esteem and depression, they're at the top of the list for it.
Y'all know I am a proponent of the right to die, so I don't understand why this is a flex. This is not a flex. The only way to avoid self-deletion is to not impose life on us in the first place. So by the fact that you impose life on us, you have already imposed a death sentence. So we all have to go out at some point. I would rather go out on my own terms. I don't understand why they always use this as some kind of a flex, that suicide is so high. And okay, who's causing the suicide? It's not that they want to die because they're gay. They want to die because of the oppression that they are experiencing from their own damn community, from their own damn family. So, if they had support, they would not necessarily be suicidal. But he wants to disenfranchise them and prevent them from earning a livelihood. So, right, that's going to do a lot to curb the suicide rates. You're going to prevent them from working, and you're going to lower their self-esteem, and you're going to ostracize them in the community. And then that's supposed to be great for their mental health. Somebody like me has a lot of self-esteem. Somebody like me doesn't give a shit about what an Umar Johnson has to say. So the shit that he has to say about me really has no weight. I guess there are young, impressionable gay people who actually would give a fuck. I would feel well into a person who was born to him, who actually has to suffer his abuse. I feel sorry for that person. But by the way, no, I don't want to make any presumption, but I thought I heard somebody say that one of his children were LGBT. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was one of his daughters. Correct me in the comment section, because I think one of his children are LGBT.
So even though I don't agree with the lifestyle, I can still validate the life of the person who practices the behavior.
But why do you say sexually confused?
Validate the life. Who needs your fucking validation? I don't need your fucking validation. Who, like, somebody cares. Somebody's vying for Umar Johnson's approval. Who the fuck are you?
As opposed to just gay.
I say sexually confused because in the African cultural construct, we believe that the universe was founded on an absolute balance of masculine and feminine energy, positive and negative, yin as well as yang. For every man that's a woman, for every woman that there is a man. We believe that complementarity, the balance or attraction of opposites, is what the universe is built upon. Every atom has a positive charge and a negative charge. It's what allows the universe to exist. For the sun, there is the moon. For water, there is for earth. For the masculine, there is for the feminine. So from an African perspective, and you will find this perspective.
Okay. I want to stop right here because I forgot where he's about to go with this, but I want to address what he just said right there. Because he just made a huge intellectual leap without even realizing what the hell he said. he said that for every negative, there's a positive. For feminine, there's masculine, there's a yin and a yang, right? He doesn't understand the implications of that, because what really is going on is that there's a void of femininity within the Black community. So he assumes that the counterbalance of a woman is a man and vice versa. No, it's masculine, feminine. So I don't know why people make this assumption that men are exclusively masculine and women are exclusively feminine. It's completely incorrect. There are men who are naturally feminine, and there are women who are naturally masculine. So there's a void of femininity within the Black community because, as I stated in my book, femininity is frowned upon in the Black community, not just by men, or just by, not just by men displaying feminine traits, but women also frown upon femininity. Everybody is masculine. So the children are not getting any nurturing from their mothers because the women have become male identified. So they've taken on all these masculine traits. And so there's a void. So out of that void comes the LGBT, who's going to fill in that feminine role. So if you were raised by, and this is not me trying to shame Black women, it's not their fault because there's a void. If the man is not there, then a lot of them feel that they have to take on a masculine role. They'll say that they're performing both, but they're not. They're not performing that the feminine role is completely negated, right? Nobody considers that to be important. The nurturing, the caretaking, it's just all authoritarian. I'm going to discipline you. I'm going to control you with an iron fist. They drop the ball when it comes to femininity. They think that because the man is absent that they have to take on the man's role, which they don't have to do. They actually can produce better results with the feminine role and not even taking on a masculine role at all. Because if they were nurturing, and we see this in other communities, where you see these kids running around the store and you think that they're going to be bad adults, and they're not. They're well adjusted because nurturing is far more important than discipline. Because nurturing is the one thing that you can't get from anybody else. Only your mother or your parents can give you nurturing. Discipline is going to come from society. So when a Black community drops the ball and it's all discipline and no nurturing, then there's going to be a void. They're going to get the discipline no matter what. But when these children grow up and they didn't get the nurturing, now they have no self-esteem. Now they don't have any self-confidence. And now they're going to be a problem for this entire community. A lot of this stems from a low self-esteem, which it comes. I told y'all about child rearing, that you have to bond with the mother. The mother has a much more greater impact on childhood development than the father, especially during the early years, under the age of 7, before individuation takes hold. But he's assuming that men are all masculine and women are all feminine. No, the reason that they keep talking about Black men in dresses is because there is a void of femininity. So, gosh, again, this is a projection because they don't want to take an accountability for their role in this. And by the way, these men are not necessarily masculine either, right? You can see somebody like Umar Johnson with the facial hair, the deep voice, and you would assume that he's masculine. He's not. He's taking on a feminine role. They're all being dominated by women, by the way. The women are the decision makers. The women are the providers and the protectors of the community. He's not. What did he do for his damn children? Because he has a deep voice and facial hair, people are going to assume that he's masculine, even though he's not. He's not in a masculine role. This is performative masculinity. When you look at the way he thinks, his logic, most of his argumentation is based on appeals to emotion. it's really not intellectual. It's really not structured. This is not, guys, I don't want to make a critique about him as a person, but what I've seen, because I don't know Umar Johnson personally, but what I've seen, and people would say that I'm feminine just because I don't have a deep voice. No, the way that I think is very masculine. It is. I know it doesn't seem that way, but the way I think about sex, the way I think about society, I think more in a more masculine way. Even though I don't present as masculine, he does not think in a masculine way at all. This is very feminine. This is he's not a protector. He's a parasite on society, on the community. He's mooching off this is the feminine role, right? The feminine role is to be a caretaker, so they rely on men to provide for them. And what he's doing is he's relying on the community to provide for him. He doesn't build, he doesn't create. All he does is siphon wealth by preying on women's emotions, because the grift is on Black women. It's not really on Black men. Black men are not giving him shit. I think Black men probably already realized the okie doke, but for some reason, Black women have not woken up to it, mainly because they want validation from Black men. So they're going to continue giving him their hard-earned money, all because they want validation. They want that masculine energy, even though he's not really masculine. I know it's hard to explain. It seems unseemly to say that he's not masculine, because you see this big Black man who calls himself King Kong consciousness. Of course he's masculine, right? You need to look beneath the surface. I've talked about these masculine and feminine traits. He's not masculine, not in a traditional sense. I know he looks masculine. He's not. I hope y'all understand what I mean by that. I can expound on that in some future content about what masculine energy is versus feminine. This is feminine energy. Everything about Umar Johnson, aside from his aesthetics, everything about him is feminine.
Very, very prevalent throughout the continent of Africa. Most of us as African people are not pro-homosexual. You don't find any evidence of any African civilization, traditionally speaking, where homosexuality was allowed, considered normal, or openly practiced. We cannot prove that no one was ever not gay, but we can prove that no African society ever legitimized the behavior as something that was to be accepted and practiced openly.
Okay, and this is where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to address the entire video, but now I'm going to debunk him with my book. Here's my book, Blame It on the Dress, the Manufacturing of Black Homophobia and Performative Masculinity. We're going to skip to chapter 2. Wait a minute. There we go. All right. Before I keep going, I want to see if I have any comments, because I don't know if some of y'all are going to be leaving. Let me get through some of these comments, because I'm about to debunk Umar Johnson. He's so fucking wrong. Oh, no, wait. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, you were talking about the video from yesterday. Yeah, I know what you mean. I like I said, I didn't catch that entire live stream, but I did catch that part, so I know what you're talking about. The real reason why straight people, such as straight women, have sex with a gay man to have a child is to make the gay man miserable just by paying for it. She has her ways, but I don't think they're necessarily trying to make us miserable, but they want to capitalize on our disposable income. That's what it's about. They want control over us. They don't want us to be existing over here on the side doing our own thing. They don't want us to be happy and thriving. it's not necessarily that they want us to be miserable. They don't want us to be happy unless they can be happy too. So if they're strapped with kids and dysfunction, and we're over here happy, and that's one of the critiques, that we're having sex and doing all this, and we're just frivolous with our money. They want to put an end to that shit. They want to tie us to these children in a traditional family, because they don't. Okay. I forgot to mention something about Umar Johnson, about what his whole thing is, because I guess that's later on in the video, but I'm going to explain what his whole psychology is. Umar Johnson is a collectivist. He doesn't believe in autonomy. He doesn't believe in individual rights, agency, any of that stuff. He wants to sacrifice the gays because we don't have individual autonomy. We're supposed to sacrifice ourselves for the community. So this is how they see it. Our whatever money we have does not belong to us. It belongs to the community. So we need to be sacrificing our resources to people like Umar Johnson so he can get his damn school, which is never going to fucking come to fruition. So they're trying to, this is psychology, right? That they're basically gatekeepers about what is happening. That they don't necessarily want us to be happy. I did address this in a book, by the way. It's not necessarily that they want us to be miserable, but they also don't care that we are happy. So the fact that even if we're not attracted to women sexually, and we don't want to have children, they don't give a shit about that. They want us to fucking sacrifice and do it anyway so that they can get what they want out of it. This is narcissism. This is collective narcissism, that they want us to pour into them. They're not going to pour into us. And they didn't pour into us when we were children, by the way. They never poured into. We were abused. We were neglected. And then they're supposed to get some kind of return on an investment that they never made. Okay. Because the thing is, if you don't like gay men and if you don't support same sex, why are you having sex with a gay man of the same sex? Because you want him to be trapped. Yeah, I told y'all about my friend from high school who tried to trap me because she wanted me to impregnate her, so I would have to pay her child support. I'm not going to say that all women do this, but yeah, I mean, I address this in the book. That's their leverage. If you are male identified and you are patriarchal even as a woman, then you think that your leverage is your womb. So you're going to use your womb in a way that's going to give you social standing. And if you think that, I mean, because that trick doesn't work on gays, right? Because we don't want your womb. So what other trick can you use, right? I mean, if you had some self-esteem and if you were a feminist, then you wouldn't be lying on your back expecting men to provide for you. But I don't know, many women are not feminists. They're anti-feminists. Okay. Right. Many gay men are masculine. The trans stuff is a distraction for politicians. Okay, I need to get into this book before I start losing people. Umar Johnson still done. What about people that are born both parts? Interesting. They don't even consider that. There are people who are hermaphrodites. They don't. They completely disregard that. And there are people who are physically who present themselves as women, but then when they go take a DNA test, they find out they actually have a Y chromosome, which means that they're technically men. I remember when I was in high school, one of my biology teacher told me that Jimmy Lee Curtis was technically a man, because I don't want to talk about this, but a lot of them have fertility issues, and they try to find out why they can't have children. Well, they look like women, but when they go test their DNA, they found out they're actually men. So if you have a Y chromosome, that makes you a man. And I told y'all there are men who have XXY chromosome. They have an extra X chromosome. So they look like women. okay, I don't want to talk about that right now, but it's very complicated, but they don't want to address the science behind it. And even if you don't have an extra chromosome, your hormones alone can affect your disposition in society. They can make you more feminine. Like that one, like they, when I was on Mr. Let Go's channel, he was telling me that I can change my voice if I want to. No, this is my voice. I'm not changing my damn voice. Anyway, let's get into this book. Let's get into this book because I want to address what Umar Johnson just said. That was a whole that was a bunch of bullshit what he just said. This is what Malcolm X said. Chapter 2 of my book, Who Taught You to Hate Yourself? Homophobia as a Tool of White Supremacy. I thought this looked a little bit different than last. Okay. Who taught you to hate yourself? Malcolm X posed this searing question to a crowd in Los Angeles in 1962, challenging Black Americans to examine the origins of their self-perception. Decades later, this question can be reframed to address a painful reality within our communities. Who taught Black people to hate gay people? The answer leads us back to the same systems of white supremacy that Malcolm X fought against. Colonial powers who understood that dividing the oppressed against themselves was the surest way to maintain control. Weaponizing homophobia, how European colonizers used homophobia to enforce social control. Homophobia did not originate in Africa. It was imported, weaponized, and strategically deployed by European colonizers to dismantle the social fabrics of African societies. To understand this, we must confront an uncomfortable truth. The violence we as Black gay men face within our own communities is not a reflection of African tradition. It is the residue of colonial domination. Homophobia is not just personal prejudice. It is a political tool wielded to fracture Black solidarity and maintain white supremacy. Before the ships arrived, before the missionaries preached, and before colonial laws were before colonial laws were inked into existence, many African societies embraced a spectrum of sexual and gender diversity. Colonizers, however, understood the power of division. They knew the easiest way to control a people was to turn them against each other. And what better way to achieve that than by criminalizing a natural part of human existence, queerness, and convincing the oppressed that the oppression was their own idea. So this is the okie doke that Umar Johnson has fallen for. He's trying to make it seem like homosexuality is the white man pushing a degenerate culture on Black people. No, homophobia is degenerate. And that came from the white man. Homophobia came from the Christian missionaries who invaded Africa and forced their false religion onto African people. So a lot of them will claim that they're not Christian, but they still cling to the relics of Christianity. Q Brother is another one. Q Brother is not Christian, but he's still clinging to the relics of Christianity, this homophobic bullshit. This one man, one woman bullshit, which also isn't Christian. This one man, one woman bullshit is not Christian. The Bible preaches polygamy. Read the damn Old Testament. European colonial powers introduced strict gender binaries and heterosexual norms as part of their civilizing mission. They framed African societies as barbaric, not just because of their skin, but because of their sexual and gender fluidity. The colonizers' message was clear. To be civilized, Africans had to reject what was already theirs, a culture that didn't see queerness as a threat, but part of their life's diverse expression. Colonial erasure, how colonialization rewrote African sexuality. The first assault was cultural erasure. European missionaries and administrators didn't just introduce Christianity, they rewrote history. They portrayed same-sex relationships and non-binary identities as perversions, despite overwhelming evidence that these practices were integral to pre-colonial African life. I've talked about this on my channel also, that many cultures practice homosexuality. In fact, during times of famine, Africans use homosexuality as birth control. Um, how can you be so damn ignorant? How can you claim to be so pro-black and you don't even know about your own damn history? They demonize indigenous spiritual systems, many of which embrace gender nonconformity and saw queer individuals as possessing unique spiritual insight. Just like the Native Americans, the whole twin spirit thing, that if you possess both masculine and feminine energies, that meant that you had superpower, that they saw you as being unique and special. They saw this as a gift. If you were if you were androgynous, that was considered spiritual awakening, because most people are not able to harness both energies. So this whole transgender shit, this was going on in Africa. I mean, of course, they couldn't have gender reassignment, but they were androgynous back in pre-colonial African societies. These people are woefully ignorant. Take the Yoruba people of Nigeria, for example. In pre-colonial Yoruba societies, gender roles were flexible, and certain spiritual leaders known as Balawaba often transcended binary gender expectations. Similarly, among the Igbo, the practice of female husbands, women who took on male social roles and married other women, was an accepted social structure, not an anomaly. These practices were not secret or shameful. They were part of the social fabric. And I was studying that when I wrote this book. If the brother died, the woman could become the head of the family, and she would take on his wife. The woman would become the husband. How come black people don't know this shit? The woman would become the damn husband, and she would take on women as her wives. And those children would become her children. She would take on a masculine role. These people are so damn ignorant. Yet when European colonizers arrived, they labeled these practices as sinful, unnatural, and backward. They imposed Victorian morality through colonial education systems, religious conversion, and legal frameworks. They made African people believe that queerness was foreign, a Western import, when in fact the true import was homophobia. Let me see if I have any comments before I keep going. I'm glad y'all are still here. There's so much to unpack. It's just, if y'all get the book. I know. I mean, I made the book available for free. I can only do that once every 90 days, so I can't do that again. But for those of you who have already downloaded it, please read it, because there's a lot of knowledge in here. This is going to be your weapon. This is a manifesto that you can use to debunk their talking point. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They speak with such confidence and authority. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're so wrong. And they talk about us imposing degeneracy on the children. No, they're the ones who are imposing degeneracy. They are imposing homophobia onto their own damn people. And this is going to wreak havoc on the black community. It already is. They're breaking up families. They're, I can even say my own father, right? They're fracturing black families due to their white supremacist homophobic bullshit. I've been talking about your book with and sending quotes to my co-workers to a fellow black man who claims to not be homophobic. He remains in denial about the history of queerness in Africa. They don't know. I mean, when they talk about Black History Month, this is not included, right? So they want to talk about the inventions. They want to talk about who invented the light bulb and who started open heart surgery, all that shit. Black history for them really starts and ends with the United States. They don't want to go back to Africa and learn about what was going on pre-colonialization. they want to talk about now. Right now, Africans are homophobic, right? Because of these European colonizers who imposed Christianity on them. They want to act as if Africans were always homophobic. Uganda, they really need to get their shit together because Uganda, they're white supremacists too. And they're using statism to oppress their own people. I'm sorry, Jonathan Josh, that was killed by a white man. He went on Jonathan Josh doorstep and shit him. They had history because a neighbor burned his dog. Jonathan called authorities. Didn't do nothing about the man I'm talking about who played the narrative. Okay. So these people create children just to see if the children is gay so they can destroy them and break their spirit. What I write about in my book is that they are fortunate enough. First of all, they already imposed life onto these children. These children didn't ask to be born into existence. So they imposed life onto these children. These children were born healthy. They had 10 fingers, 10 toes. And yet they're still complaining, right? They could have been born with Down syndrome. They could have been born with all kinds of deformities. But they have healthy children. And they're whining about their children becoming gay. Why? Because this is a reflection on them. The community frowns upon homosexuality. This performative masculinity is the strength of the community. This is the reason why the community frowns upon femininity. Not just the men, but the women also. They frown upon femininity because they don't want us to look weak. They see femininity as weakness. Everybody has been indoctrinated with this, that femininity is weakness. Even the women believe this. This is the reason why Black women are not able to display femininity. They don't want to be seen as weak. And so when you have gay, this is the void that I was talking about. Nobody wants to be feminine. So when gay men pick up that mantle and display it openly and unapologetically, they have a problem with it. You're not supposed to be feminine. Why are you acting like a bitch? Be a man. Men are superior to women. So why would you want to be like a woman when you can be a superior man? This is misogyny run amok. A lot of people don't understand the intersectionality of homophobia and misogyny. It's the same damn thing. Homophobia is rooted in misogyny. So you can't be a feminist. You can't be a proponent of Black women if you hate men who assume the feminine role, right? These are not mutually exclusive. Women are not mutually exclusive or are not exclusively feminine. We all, what did Carl Jung call it? A countersexuality. The anima and the animus. We all have a feminine side and a masculine side. I wrote about all this shit in my book. Y'all have to read the book because I know reading books is boring. I can try to present this and try to make it as entertaining as possible, but you have to read the book. So when they confront you with these ass backwards, ill thought arguments, you can have a counter argument. You should be armed with this shit, right? Because otherwise, when they spew their homophobic vitriol against you, you're not going to be able to counter it, and then they're going to look like they've won. They're going to dominate you with their ignorance, unless you arm yourself with these arguments. Read the damn book. I'm not going to do Amazon KDP again because, excuse me, I have all this mucus in my nose and I'm trying to talk through it. 1 second. I can't do Amazon KDP again because if I do Amazon KDP, then I won't be able to sell my book on other platforms. And the only way that I can make it available for free is through Amazon KDP. So I'm not doing that again. I think my book would be successful if I can put it on other platforms. I don't want to limit myself to Amazon KDP. So as much as I would like it to make the book available for free, I can't do that again. I did make it available for free for 5 days. I'm not going to do that anymore. I need to actually start selling this book, and I'm sorry. So you can get it on Amazon Kindle Unlimited. So you do have to pay a subscription, but that subscription allows you to read other books. So yeah, I'm not going to make it available, because even when I did make it available, some of you guys downloaded it, but you didn't actually read it. I can see it shows how many pages were read. I can see that. So you can download it, but that doesn't, and I'm still not getting any reviews. So the fact that you download it does not really help me. What I need are people to actually read it, and I need you to actually write some reviews. All right, y'all. Because I have stories of men that killed their wives because their wives found out that they was gay and killed themselves. Yeah, everything about this is completely anti-black and un-African, to create chaos to another family, and did not ask for this bullshit, not even for the daughter. They said, why you want to be a woman, gay men? Because they think being a woman is a pejorative. They think anything feminine is pejorative. This is misogyny. They hate women. They hate gays because they hate women. That's just what it is. Anybody who assumes that feminine role is to be frowned upon. I don't think black women even realize that that homophobia is their own undoing. That when you demonize gay men, you're really demonizing yourself. You're not only are you demonizing yourself, but straight men are also demonizing themselves. They're demonizing the part of them that is feminine. So you're not allowed to display any feminine traits. So when you get this performative masculinity that is hyper masculine, that wreaks havoc on the entire community. You have men who are not able to be nurturing fathers. They're not emotionally available to their women, to their female partners. You have women who are not nurturing. I'm going to eventually not just talk about homophobia, but also how this hyper performative masculine ideal wreaks havoc on the entire community. Not just for straight people, not just for gay people, but for straight people also. It does so much damage for the entire community. I'm going to get back to the book, because I don't want to start boring people. I'm already starting to lose people. My coworker is so in denial about the natural, normal queerness in Africa that he was willing to argue that colonially enforced homophobia, anti-queerness was good. The saddest part is I feel sorry for the daughter and didn't know that the dude struggled when she married him, because she wasted her time dating men like the same sex. Okay, let me get back to the book. Where was I? The colonial strategy of the divide and conquer was not limited to physical domination. It extended into the psyche. By criminalizing queerness, colonizers created an internal enemy within the black community. Suddenly, the queer brother, the gender non-conforming sister, the soft-spoken boy, or the assertive girl became threats to the community survival, to community survival. Not because they inherently were, but because colonial systems made it so. Colonial authorities passed anti-sodomy laws, many of which remain on the books across Africa and the Caribbean today. To institutionalize this division, they weaponized the idea that queerness was not just immoral, but anti-African. This is what Umar Johnson is doing. Umar Johnson is trying to push this narrative that homosexuality is anti-African. It's not true. It's no coincidence that the harshest anti-gay laws in African countries today mirror the penal codes drafted by British and French colonial administrators. The colonizers may have left, but the systems they built and the self-hatred they cultivated remain. Consider Uganda's infamous Kill the Gays bill, championed not just by local leaders, but fueled by American evangelical influence, a modern extension of colonial religious imperialism. When Black Americans support such legislation, it's not because homophobia is inherently Black, it's because colonial narratives taught us to police each other, to see queerness as a threat rather than a shared experience of marginalization. So they don't even have to rely on a state to impose their ignorance. The community is policing us. You have parents trying to police their own children. The community thinks they have veto power over what you do in your own bedroom. So they're basically doing a white man's bidding. This is white supremacy, but it's being done by Black people. Black faces in high places. We have Uganda and other African countries inflicting anti-sodomy laws punishable by death, by the way. The Uganda anti-gay bill inflicts the death penalty on those who are gay. And we have Black people in America who support this shit. And this is supposed to be pro-Black. You want to kill your own damn people. Thus, homophobia serves its ultimate purpose, to keep us fighting each other instead of dismantling the systems that oppress us all. It's a distraction, a poison passed down through generations disguised as tradition but rooted in white supremacy. Until we confront this reality, we remain pawns in a colonial game designed to rob us all of our humanity and unity. The origins of Black homophobia, a colonial adherence, a myth of traditional Black homophobia, how colonial narratives frame queerness as un-African. One of the most insidious lies colonialism ever sold us is that homophobia is an authentic part of African culture. It is a lie so deeply entrenched that many of our people will fight to protect it, believing they are defending their heritage. But the truth is far less convenient. Homophobia is a colonial inheritance, a foreign ideology disguised as tradition. European colonizers understood that cultural domination was as powerful as military conquest. They didn't just steal land, they rewrote history, casting their values as universal and labeling indigenous practices as primitive. Queerness, which once existed openly across many African societies, became the prime target of this cultural assault. Colonizers reframed same-sex intimacy and gender nonconformity as un-African, a deviant threat to the Christian morality they imposed through schools, churches, and colonial law. The irony, of course, is that the very people who introduced homophobia now accuse Africa of being inherently intolerant. They erased our history and then blamed us for forgetting it. Right? So they're playing both sides of the fence, right? They are the ones who, the colonizers introduced homophobia to Africa, and now they want to shame Africans for being barbaric, for being homophobic. So you're going to be barbaric no matter what. You're barbaric for supporting homosexuality, and now you're barbaric for being homophobic. So they got their bases covered, and Umar Johnson and his ilk are playing right into their hands. Okay, this is the part that this is the meat of this section that really debunks everything that Umar Johnson has been saying. Sorry, y'all. My nose is so congested, and I'm trying to talk through it because I don't want to stop to try to. I'm just going to get through this, and I'm not going to make this too long because I do need to clear out my congestion. I don't want to talk about that too much because I know it's kind of gross, but y'all, I do sound nasally, so that's the reason why. Pre-colonial reality, same-sex relationships, and gender fluidity in African societies. To dismantle the myth of traditional Black homophobia, we must reclaim the truth. Pre-colonial Africa was rich with diverse expressions of gender and sexuality across the continent. Same-sex relationships, gender nonconformity, and fluid sexual roles. Excuse me, y'all, my phone. Shit, I'm supposed to be having this interview or this. I have an appointment at 4:00. I just remember that. This lady is supposed to be. I'm supposed to talk to this lady about promoting my book. Anyway, yeah, I can't stay on here too long. I can't go past 4 because I do need to go talk to her. Across the continent, same-sex relationships, gender nonconformity, and fluid social roles were not just tolerated, but often integrated into cultural, spiritual, and social life. The Zandi of Central Africa, among the Zandi people of what is now South Sudan and the Central African Republic, same-sex relationships were part of the social fabric. Young male warriors were often centered mentorship relationships with other men. This was a rite of passage, right? And many African societies that you actually gain social status through homosexuality, right? I believe the Romans also did this too. That you could attain social status through homosexuality, meaning if there was a man who had social standing, you could the same way women do. Women gain social status by their relationships with men through proximity to a man. So a man could basically appropriate the social standing of another man through homosexuality. By having sex, you would gain. Now that's being frowned upon, right? This whole Diddy shit. No, in African societies, Diddy has power. You could have sex with Diddy and basically become Diddy. You could basically usurp Diddy and take his. You could appropriate his power by having sex with him. Now the black community sees it the opposite. Now you're his bitch. No, you would actually become him. You would become one with him, and you would. I don't understand how the black community got this shit so backwards. It's not. You're not his bitch. You would basically usurp his authority. You would basically be a proxy of him. It's the quickest way to get social standing. You would become his proxy. You're not his bitch. You are his proxy. So I just don't understand where the black community was so wrong when it came to this. These bonds were not seen as shameful, but as a natural part of the warrior culture. Again, the Romans also practices that warriors would have sex with each other, and this formed cultural bonds and societal bonds. That if you would actually have a greater affinity for your other warriors if you had a sexual relationship, an intimate relationship with them, right? The way this is the black community is so fragmented that you're not supposed to have any kind of intimate relationship with other men. So therefore, you have no connection to them. So this is the reason why black men are so predisposed to kill each other. They see themselves as competition, right? You're competing against women for validation. You don't have any connection to other black men. You're not allowed to have any intimate relationship, not just sexual, but intimate relationship. You're not even allowed to have an intimate relationship with your own father because that's suspect too. So you can't have any intimacy with other black men. Is this supposed to be a good thing? Is this supposed to be good for the black community? It absolutely is not. In Yoruba society, gender was not rigidly defined. Certain spiritual roles, such as priests of, I tried to look up how to pronounce these words, but I guess I overlooked it. Orisha, Yemaja. Okay, y'all. I didn't look up these words, so I'm probably butchering how to pronounce it. Were often filled by gender, non-conforming individuals, same-sex relationships existed within royal courts and religious practices, unburdened by the stigma that colonization would later impose. The Igbo of Nigeria, among the Igbo, the institution of female husbands disrupted the Western notions of gender and sexuality, right? So now we call them studs, right? They act like this is a Western import. It's not. Women were acting as female husbands way back before colonization. This has been completely wiped clean of history or from history. Everybody's so ignorant that this was going on. I think that the community would actually be better off if women took on the role as a female husband. I'm saying this right now because I've seen it with my own two eyes. When women Okay. So the benefit of that is that when a woman takes on the masculine role, then the other woman takes on the feminine role, right? Umar Johnson was talking about there has to be a yin and a yang. There has to be a balance, a masculine and feminine. But that doesn't necessarily have to be male, female. The male can take on a feminine role, and the other male can take on a feminine role, and vice versa. This is the reason why I do have a problem with, I don't think that it works. When you have gays in the gay community and both of them want to be masculine. Oh, I'm only into masculine. No, one of you is going to be masculine, one of you is going to be feminine. There has to be a balance. Two masculine men do not work. It just doesn't work. Right? Who's going to be the top? Who's going to be the bottom? Who's cooking? Who's cleaning? Who's going to submit? You can't have two dominant alpha males together. It's not going to work. It never does. And the same thing with femininity. Both of you can't be feminine. Somebody has to take on a masculine role. Again, it doesn't have to be male, female, but somebody needs to take on that role. I don't know why Umar Johnson glossed over that whole point. He just assumed that the man is going to be masculine and the woman is going to be feminine. That's not necessarily true. Even in heterosexual dynamics, the man is not necessarily masculine, right? And a lot of times you cause all this chaos because you assume that the man has to take on the masculine role and the woman has to take on a feminine role. And that creates an energy imbalance. That some of these men are not naturally masculine and some of these women are not naturally feminine. And the dominant society, particularly, I'm going to say even specifically within the Jewish community, they already understand this, right? A lot of these Jewish women are dominant. A lot of these white women are dominant. And a lot of these white men don't have a problem with it. They understand the woman may make more money and it's not a slight to my masculinity or feminine or whatever it is, because it's not necessarily masculinity. It's not a slight to my manhood because they embrace their feminine side. So they don't mind. And the reason why I'm going back to the Jewish community is because in the Jewish community, the man is the head when it comes to religious matters, right? So a lot of outsiders see this as the man being dominant. They see this as being anti-feminine, but it's not. The man may be the head when it comes to religious matters, but the women a lot of times are the head when it comes to financial matters. They're the head when it comes to child rearing. So there's a give and take. But no, in the Black community, it's just a blanket slate that you're the man, you're supposed to be the head of all things. All-knowing, all-powerful. The man is supposed to be the head of all things. And it doesn't work. And the women don't like it. They resent it, right? They don't want to conform to patriarchy. Yeah, you can be the head on some things, but you can't be the head on all things. And if the woman is financially dominant and she's the provider, then that's going to give her some agency. But a lot of men don't want to let up. They don't want to let that go. They want to be dominant in all things, and they're not partners. They're not partners. So what Umar Johnson said was completely wrong. Just because you're a man doesn't necessarily make you masculine, and just because you're a woman, that does not necessarily make you feminine. Okay. The Samburu of Kenya, among the Samburu people, same-sex intimacy was common within the context of warrior bonding. Young warriors often engaged in romantic and sexual relations with each other, which were seen as strengthening community ties rather than threatening them, right? So what they say in the Black community is that if you're gay, you're a bitch. Do they not know that even within the gay community, we have gay gangs? We have gay men who are going around beating up straight men, right? Maybe I need to do content about that, because they automatically assume that if you're gay, you're weak. It's not true. It actually strengthens your warrior kinship. These practices weren't hidden or shameful. They were integrated into everyday life. The arrival of European colonizers didn't civilize African societies. They corrupted them with homophobia, imposing their rigid definitions of gender, and sexuality through law, religion, and education. The transatlantic slave trade was not just about the physical capture and sale of African bodies. It was about the erasure of culture that forced adoption of European ideologies and a violent reshaping of African identity to fit within a white supremacist framework. Enslaved Africans were stripped of not only their freedom, but their understanding of gender and sexuality. On the plantations of the Americas, European slaveholders imposed their patriarchal heteronormative structures on enslaved people. Queer expressions, once accepted and even celebrated in many African societies, were now framed as deviant, punishable by death, torture, or social ostracization. Enslaved Africans who had once known their societies were Enslaved Africans who had once known societies where same-sex relationships were part of community life were now told that such relationships were sinful, unnatural, and deserving of punishment. This indoctrination didn't end with emancipation. It seeped into the consciousness of Black communities across the diaspora, reinforced by colonial education systems with Christian churches. Homophobia became a weapon used not just by white oppressors, but within Black communities themselves, as a tragic example of how colonial violence teaches the oppressed how to police each other. And this is a point that I really want y'all to really let sink in. Homophobia cannot exist with statism. So I always make the ties between these hierarchical structures. Capitalism, statism, religious oppression. The notion that homophobia was prevalent in Africa really is illogical. Right? Because homophobia cannot exist without either a state or some type of centralized, organized religion. Because these African cultures did not have a state, homophobia was impossible. If you were living in a state of nature, there would be no homophobia. You would just do whatever you felt like doing. If you wanted to have sex with a man, you would just do it. The same way animals do. I told y'all that homosexuality is prevalent among the animal kingdom. Y'all know that the rhinos, I should say, before they mate with the females, they practice on other males, right? This is how they step their game up. The same thing with elephants. Elephants practice homosexuality with other males before they mate with females. I don't know why people are ignorant of this. I've even showed content, or I showed video footage of male lions practicing with other males before they mate with females, right? Somebody said, well, there was no actual penetration. Well, you have a male lion climbing on top of another male, humping the other male. Maybe he's not going inside that hole, but it's still heteroerotic. I mean, are you serious? Are you gaslighting me? Do I need to show the video footage of male lions practicing mating with other males? Because people act like this doesn't exist, that this is unnatural, it's ungodly. It's not ungodly. This is the rite of passage, that you practice with other males before you mate with females. And this is the same thing that Africans were doing, by the way. Little boys would experiment with each other before they mated with females. What are you talking about? What are you? You're so fucking ass backwards. This homophobia is not innate in African tradition. It came from colonialization. It's not natural to be homophobic. It's not natural to shun your natural impulses. Okay, I'm going to have to go pretty soon because that lady is probably going to be calling me. And I don't know if she has any insight on helping me to promote my book, but I don't want to miss this appointment because maybe she can't help me. So I'm going to get through this one section, then I'm going to end it. This history makes it clear oppression is not inherent to African culture. It is a colonial imposition, and yet African systems rooted in colonial rule continue to enforce rigid hierarchies that criminalize queerness and reinforce systemic violence. This is why I support anarchy over statism, because statism, by its very nature, consolidates power into the hands of the few, inevitably leading to oppression. Liberation cannot come from the state, which exists to maintain control, but from the rejection of its authority and the reclamation of self-determination. Yeah, Umar Johnson is not a proponent of anarchy. Umar Johnson supports statism, even though statism leads to oppression of African people, as he calls us. I don't know that we're necessarily African. Y'all know that the Nation of Islam does not refer to us as African, by the way. The Nation of Islam refers to us as the Asiatic black man. I can explain why they call us Asiatic as opposed to African. I'll do that in another video. But I call myself black. I don't call myself African, because calling us African really limits us to one continent. And black people were indigenous to the entire world. Every continent on the planet has indigenous black people, even Europe. So I don't know why you'd be calling us African. We're not African. Asia has black people. Yeah, we're not African. We're black, or as the Nation of Islam calls us, we're the Asiatic black man. Okay, I'll address that separately, because I have a lot to say about that. But again, I'm short on time because that lady's going to be calling me soon, and I need to get some pointers on how to promote my book. Christianity as a colonial weapon, how forced conversion imposed anti-gay ideologies. To understand the roots of black homophobia, we must confront an uncomfortable reality. Christianity, as introduced to African societies through colonization and slavery, was not about spiritual salvation. It was about control. European missionaries did not arrive on African shores with Bibles out of benevolence. They came with a dual purpose: to conquer lands and minds. And in their mission to civilize, they brought not only European religion, but European prejudice, including a deep-seated intolerance for queerness. Before colonization, African spiritual systems were diverse and often accommodating of gender and sexual fluidity. But when European missionaries arrived, they declared these systems pagan, sinful, and primitive. The Bible became both a weapon and shield used to justify colonial rule, while demonizing indigenous practices, including same-sex relationships and non-binary identities. Forced conversions were commonplace. Enslaved Africans were baptized not just into Christianity, but into moral codes that their Africans were baptized not just into Christianity, but into moral codes of their captors, codes that frame queerness as a sinful and heterosexual, patriarchy as divine order. This religious indoctrination wasn't just about faith, it was about reshaping African societies into the colonizer's image, and that image had no place for queer people. I could go on, but I'm gonna end this right now. Y'all gotta come back and read this book. Read chapter 2, because this explains how homosexuality wasn't just accepted in African cultures, it was actually embraced. It was integrated. It was a part of African culture. It had a cultural function, that it actually strengthened the warrior culture. By being gay, you actually form a kinship among fellow warriors. Let me, I guess I'm starting to lose people. Hey, my apologies for turning late. Why did I just lose that comment? Hey, my apologies for coming late. I just got in from doing lawn work. Yeah, I need to do some lawn work too before I go to work. I at least need to water my plants, because I didn't water them yesterday. But kudos to those who are into gardening and doing lawn care. Oh, that was, let me stop. No, we both in the shower. Oh, that creates an image in my mind. Okay. It seems like the homophobia to go away. sexism, misogyny, and the criminalization of femininity would have to be abolished. Yes, please buy the book. Please buy the book. And even for those of you who got the free version, don't just download. You need to actually read it. You need to actually get this knowledge because there's a lot of knowledge that was dropped in that book. I did a lot of research, and I've read other books that have really addressed homophobia in the Black community, but I think this book is very comprehensive. Mainly because I really pay attention to the arguments that they're putting forth, and I try to address them all. Umar Johnson's arguments would be debunked within 5 minutes of reading this book. Umar Johnson, he has an agenda. He's an agent, especially when it comes to white supremacy and homophobia. I would love to debate Umar Johnson. I really would. I don't know what platform can put this together, but Umar Johnson, I don't know. For some reason, I don't trust him when it comes to this issue. What are they getting out of this, by the way? What are they getting out of pushing homophobia? I understand. Oh, I get it. You know, I actually addressed this in my book. The Black man wants to protect his performative masculine image, right? And by not conforming to heteronormity, we are destroying the performative image, masculine image of the Black man. The Black women want resources, and they want social validation through their womb, and they can't get it if we're gay. So everybody is in it for themselves. It's not because they necessarily care about the community. They want it because of their own self-interest, and they want to sacrifice it. So everybody's doing it for themselves except gays. Gays are supposed to sacrifice themselves for the community. We're supposed to be the workhorses who give our resources to the community. We're not supposed to get anything out of it. We're supposed to be miserable. Not because they necessarily want us to be miserable, it's because they don't care about us being happy. We're supposed to just sacrifice, because this is narcissism. This is a one-sided unilateral contract where they get what they want out of us. We get nothing in return. What the hell do we get out this whole social contract? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen him try to debate other people. I've never really seen him debate an actual gay man. He's usually debating Black women who are allies to the gay community, but I would like him to debate me. If it's, I mean, I could say he could debate somebody else, but I don't know. I don't know who's really going to give him this rainbow smoke, because I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him. I think it's because I have embraced not just anarchy, but also anti-natalism. I think I can confront him on all angles, unapologetically. Sorry, y'all. I have so much. I need to go clear my nose. I have so much mucus and it's hard to talk. Because the idea is you already see how they're trying to protect transgender and drag queens. Now they're going after the gays and they're going to say, why are you gay? That's the whole, that's what Mr. Letko was asking. Why are you gay? Like, because they don't see men as having any sexual desire. Men are not object of desire. They are, women are the object of desire, and men are the, I don't know, they're the conquerors. They're going to conquer the women. They're not to be conquered. Nobody's supposed to look at them in a sexual manner. They can walk around half naked. They'll shame women for going around, you know, half naked, right? By the way, this is also a colonial import. This is also colonization, because in Africa, women were going around showing their chests and barely clothe. I mean, you would clothe your actual private parts, but showing your chest in Africa was not frowned upon. Nobody cared about it. It was not even considered sexual. Breasts were considered, they were for they served the function of nurturing children, right? But now all of a sudden, if a Black woman walks around with no clothes on. Of course they have clothes on, but this is how they frame it. She has no self-esteem. She's trying to get attention from men because they have become degenerate. They have a perversion of sexuality that anytime a woman reveals her body is to be shamed. This is from colonialization. But the men can do it all day long. The men can walk around. I go down the street, right? I told you I live in the hood. If I walk down the street, I'm bound to find black men walking around with no damn clothes on. But we're supposed to look away. We're not supposed to find them desirable. Right. They do want to fragment the community. This is what they do. They try to weaponize that. And by the way, I don't even think that the black trans are really that extreme. This whole women's sports shit, going in women's bathrooms, I don't think that's really a huge problem in the black community. I don't really have a problem with transgender. I don't. I do have a problem with procreation. I don't think the LGBT community should be procreating. I think that's what straight people should. I don't even think straight people should be doing it. But again, I think that not procreating is what gives us the moral high ground. It's what makes us morally superior, is the fact that we don't breed children into hell. So don't try to imitate what they do. Don't do that. And I don't know. Because you have been conditioned. You have been conditioned to believe that this is how you get social validation, is through your progeny. That you need to be like them. You're going to get all this social validation by having children. It's not about you, though. You need to think about the welfare of your potential offspring. And yeah, I think you need to connect the dots between antinatalism and anarchy, and, well, specifically queer anarchy. All this shit is interconnected. It's one less thing the system can exploit. Exactly. And I'm so glad that you pointed that out on your live stream yesterday. They want more black bodies to oppress and to exploit. And so by pushing this whole progenitor culture, all you're doing is playing right into the hands of white supremacy. You're not going to do anything to fight against the system. You're not going to dismantle it, but you're just going to put more black children into the system to fuel the school to prison pipeline. And you think that's somehow pro-black. I'm going to address that too, because there's a woman who says that anti-natalism is white supremacy. No, it's not. It's not. And I'm going to address that. And I think I'm going to stream on both channels. Again, I tried to use OBS Studio, but I had some problems with that. But I'm going to eventually learn how to do that. I don't know if you can stream on two channels using OBS Studio. So I'm going to practice. I'm going to do a test on OBS Studio before I go live with that. In the meantime, I'm going to be using either StreamYard or Restream. So with that being said, thank y'all for being here. Thank you for listening to the Black Anarchist Podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. The struggle is real, and the fight for liberation is far from over. Get sovereign or die trying.